In 1025 CE, the Asian maritime trade network was anchored by three massive economic nodes. Song dynasty China controlled the east, the Chola Empire in southern India controlled the west, and sitting directly between them, in modern-day Indonesia, was the Srivijaya Empire. That year, Srivijaya's capital, Palembang, was overrun by a massive amphibious invasion force. The city was sacked, its royal treasury plundered, and its king captured. The attack came from the Chola dynasty. Ordered by Emperor Rajendra I, Chola forces had crossed roughly 1,500 miles of open ocean to strike. Executing a transoceanic strike of this magnitude requires enormous logistical capacity. Yet the Chola Empire possessed no dedicated standing navy. They built no specialized warships. Instead, they executed this strike using three specific tools: retrofitted civilian merchant ships, precise environmental intelligence, and geographic deception. By examining how they coordinated these elements, we can see how the 1025 expedition serves as an exacting blueprint for asymmetrical, limited war across an ocean. The economic engine driving this conflict was the Song dynasty's tributary system. Foreign merchants who participated in this diplomatic protocol were granted highly lucrative tax rebates and import licenses for Chinese markets. This map shows Chola trade routes, shaded pink, extending across the Indian Ocean. Notice the severe bottleneck at the Strait of Malacca, controlled entirely by Srivijaya. They leveraged this position as a mandatory toll booth, forcing merchants into ports and extracting heavy transit fees. To secure their dominance, Srivijayan envoys actively deceived the Chinese court. They falsely represented the powerful Chola Empire as a weak, subservient vassal state, elevating their own status and securing better trade conditions for themselves. This diplomatic sabotage directly threatened the profits of powerful Tamil merchant networks like the Ayavola Guild, who relied on uninterrupted tax-advantaged trade with the Song markets. Rajendra Chola's decision to invade was not driven by a desire to conquer new territory. He launched a calculated geo-economic limited war specifically designed to shatter Srivijaya's trade monopoly and restore his empire's commercial access. Lacking specialized warships, the Chola invasion force relied entirely on a concept modern militaries call stuffed, ships taken up from trade. They used retrofitted merchant vessels, primarily the Kolandaya, characterized by its bulky cargo hull and twin masts. These cargo ships were designed for massive volume, not combat. They were notoriously slow, difficult to maneuver, and entirely lacked onboard artillery. For a fleet of this size, the obvious staging ground was Nagapattinam, the primary trading port of the Chola Empire. But Nagapattinam presented two severe logistical problems. First, its shallow anchorage made it too dangerous to hold a massive fleet during the heavy surge waves of the winter cyclonic season. Second, as an international trade hub, it was heavily monitored by foreign merchants and spies. If Srivijaya learned of the gathering fleet, the element of surprise would vanish. To ensure strict operational security, the Cholas quietly assembled the bulk of their slow-moving armada at secondary, remote ports far to the south of Nagapattinam. They then employed a decoy tactic. Only the heavily guarded command flagship departed from the highly visible port of Nagapattinam. The rest of the hidden fleet was coordinated to rendezvous with the flagship later, out in the open sea. When an invasion force is reliant on inferior, slow-moving civilian hardware, maintaining absolute secrecy during the embarkation phase is the only viable method to ensure the fleet survives the initial ocean crossing. The retrofitted merchant ships carried a severe aerodynamic limitation. They used square and rectangular sails. This meant they could not tack or sail close to the wind. They could only travel in the exact direction the wind blew. The Chola command accounted for this by strictly timing their departure for the December-January window, allowing the strong northeasterly monsoon winds to propel the heavy fleet across the Bay of Bengal in roughly 15 days. To maintain a precise eastward heading across open water, they relied on celestial navigation, using the Orion constellation as a fixed pathfinder above the equator. Looking at this map, Sumatra sits left, the Malay Peninsula top right. Anticipating an attack, Srivijayan forces heavily fortified Kedah, guarding the Malacca Strait's northern entrance. Instead of sailing into that bottleneck, the Cholas bypassed it entirely. Utilizing ocean currents, the fleet coasted silently southward down the completely undefended western coastline of Sumatra. Reaching the southern tip, they hooked sharply east through the narrow Sunda Strait, positioning them to strike Palembang from the exposed southern rear. The Srivijayan garrison suddenly found themselves facing a fully mobilized invasion force emerging rapidly from a geographic blind spot. The Cholas bypassed Srivijaya's hard naval power entirely, leveraging deep environmental intelligence to execute a flawless asymmetric flank. The surprise attack collapsed Palembang's defenses. The Chola forces sacked the city, emptying the royal treasury and capturing King Sangrama himself. The physical evidence of this strike remains carved into the stone walls of the Thanjavur Big Temple in India. The inscription explicitly details the capture of the Srivijayan king and the seizure of his jeweled wargate. Despite this overwhelming victory, the Chola army made no attempt to permanently occupy the capital or govern the Sumatran islands. Having secured their loot and neutralized the threat, the fleet withdrew. The political fallout was immediate. Without its king and treasury, the Srivijayan mandala fractured. The empire's centralized maritime control dissolved, giving way to smaller, agriculturally focused regional kingdoms like Kadiri. The ultimate victors were the Tamil merchant guilds. With the blockade shattered, they rapidly expanded into the vacuum, colonizing the Malacca Strait trade routes and dominating commerce in the region for the next century. Rajendra Chola's 2025 expedition proves that projecting transoceanic power does not demand the most advanced standing navy. It is achieved through an exact, uncompromising alignment of limited political objectives, logistical stealth, and asymmetric geographic strategy.